Welcome to this tutorial on tips on how to prepare a talk. So first of all, why is it useful to give good talks? Now, as scientists, you will give many talks, and presenting your work will help you in many, many ways. It will help other scientists to know about your work, about your results, to trust you and your work more, and also to cite your papers. It will help through that to establish new collaborations and maybe develop through that new science objectives. It will help very concretely to get a job, and if you get a job, maybe to get a grant after that. So it will also be your opportunity to tell your story and your vision of science. So why should you listen to this tutorial? What will you learn in it? So first, I hope I will explain how you can adapt your talk to your goals. I will explain that in your talk, there's different parts. I will go through the storyline, the design, the text, images, and also the voice. I will try to give you tips on how you can improve each of these aspects within a talk and maybe reconsider some misconception. However, warning, I'm not a professional communicator. I'm a scientist. And so this tutorial is based on what I learned as a scientist after giving talks, listening to talks, studying tutorials like you're doing now, or talking to professional communicators. And some choices can be personal. So this tutorial will not teach you how to make a brilliant presentation. However, it can help you to maybe avoid making a very bad one. So the material contained here is based on my experience, on feedback that I got from people, on the specialization on Coursera on presentation skills that I attended that I found very, very interesting, on lectures on spoken communication by my father, who is professor in this field. So let's start. First of all, you have been invited to give a talk. Fantastic. How do you start? As a first step, I would suggest you to set your goals. Identify what are your objectives. Are you applying for a job? Are you looking for some new collaboration? Are you giving an outreach talk? Are you teaching? Or do you want to learn something for yourself? First, set your goal, because your slides and even the tools that you're using to give that talk will have to adapt to that goal. So for example, in my personal goals for this tutorial are transferring knowledge. I want to share with you what I've learned so far. I wanted to learn also myself how to prepare my first code lab tutorial. So this first, also the tool that I was using, contributing to the lab activity. And also I had as a goal to prepare this tutorial within 1 week. And make it suitable also to share, so that even if there's not my voice on top, then you can still go, for example, to the Code Lab tutorial and have a look through all the tips. So once you know your goals and your objectives, also ask yourselves, to whom are you talking? Because what you're saying is not actually important by itself. It becomes important if someone listens to you. So it's in your interest to help your audience. And if you know your audience and you know what they're looking for, then you can also manage better their attention. So who are you talking to? To one person, to a panel, to a large audience, to experts in your field, in another field, to students, to the general public? This will change your talk and the way in which you have to prepare it. What is their expectation? Would they like to learn about your specific work or learn about the state of the art in your field? Do they have to evaluate you? Or are they looking for a new collaboration, and maybe you might be their new collaborator? In any case, try to value your audience effort. In most cases, your audience went to the seminar room, or maybe like in this case for you, you clicked on a link, you connected at the right time, you had to interrupt your work, you were thinking about the deadline I have to work on, or this other paper, my PhD thesis, and other things. And your audience is now spending their time to listen to you rather than just doing something else. So when you start, remember that the audience is thinking about many different things. And suddenly they have to start thinking about the same thing. They have to start thinking about what you are thinking. So if you think about that, actually, it's a quite strange thing. And it's not easy to start and to manage the attention of the people. So we'll go through various tips that may help you to manage the attention through different elements that make your talk. Let's start, however, with the first exercise. So here and in the next section, I've tried to detail how I would address these different 5 situations. So how should I change my talk or adapt my talk, depending if I want to give a 1-hour lecture, a 20-minute presentation to a committee panel, a 40-minute scientific seminar to experts in my domain, a 1-hour colloquium, or public outreach talk, like a TED talk. So before I give you my description for these situations, so try maybe to discuss a bit about that. So what do you think is similar in this situation? Or what would you focus on within this situation? And in particular, how do you think that they differ? What would you do in one situation that you wouldn't do in another one? So for example, 20-minute presentation to a committee panel. Is there anyone among you that would like to share some thoughts?
I can say that it's very important to stay in the time that is allocated.
Yeah, very
more
good
important
point.
than for a normal talk.
That's also a very good point. Actually, that's one of the differences, for example, between a lecture and maybe a presentation to a committee panel. Maybe in a lecture, you can adapt a bit also the topic and the density of the topics. And maybe instead, in the 20-minute presentation to a committee panel, you really have to be very efficient within the time you have. How, for example, again, that situation would differ from an outreach talk, or from how a colloquium would differ from a scientific seminar.
You should take some time to present yourself for the committee panel.
Indeed, exactly, Axel, you're right. So you would concentrate more in that situation on yourself and maybe on your scientific work rather than on the general field.
And also, in comparison to seminar to experts, be very clear on the context of your talk, because they might not be experts and they need to understand what you're going to explain during the talk.
That's really true. So you have to be clear and explain well the context. So is that similar or different to a situation in which, for example, you're teaching, you're giving a lecture, or you're giving an outreach talk? Would you target that to a general audience in the same way in these 3 situations?
I think it depends for the committee. If you know in advance who's going to be there, you can get some information and see what their fields of expertise and adapt for that. And in comparison, for an outreach talk, you can just take the assumption that nobody knows what you're working on, and then you can be really explicit on different things.
Okay, that's very interesting, and I think there's a lot of truth in it. Is there any other comment before I go to the description?
Well, something kind of obvious, but in a public outreach talk or in a lecture, you can, maybe tell a joke or make your audience, react or laugh so that they keep attention. In a committee panel presentation, you should be very focused on results, right? No jokes, for example, I would say.
Okay, that's interesting that you're mentioning jokes. Maybe I'll mention something about that also later. Okay, very good. So thank you for your input. So now, yeah.
I could say another thing is shorter is a talk, more time you need to spend per slide. Sometimes you have a 3-minute talk to give. And it's very important that in 3 minutes, people get the point, the big picture of what you want to say.
Indeed, you have to be very efficient if you have less time, and that's more difficult. So, but still, again, achievable. Agree. Okay, so in the next point, number 5, you find my personal description of these 5 situations. So I will leave them anyway to you so that you can also use them as a reference in case you find yourself in one of these situations and you can go back and maybe you would find them useful. So maybe I'll describe in detail 1 or 2 of these situations. Let me actually go through the 20-minute presentation to committee panel since we mentioned that, and maybe as a second one, I would pick the 40-minute scientific seminar, unless you have other stronger preferences. Okay, so let me first describe what I think I would do in a 20-minute presentation. So in that case, the goal is to get a job. And so your aim is to really convince the panel that you are the best person for that position. You have to imagine that the committee panels will be asked to compare your story to the story of other candidates, of each of the other candidates. And so again, your talk becomes your chance, your opportunity to give your version of your story. You have to demonstrate them why you are a good fit. What is your specific contribution to science so far? Your responsibilities. Convince them also that you can explain clearly what you know, but also that you can value what they know, that you can be useful by providing something that they do not know. So this is a different situation from teaching. You're not teaching and the panel committees are not your students. And you have to provide all this information in a very efficient way because you only have 20 minutes. So probably in the first 5, you will introduce yourself, and maybe you'll explain what's this timely challenge in your field that really needs you to be solved. And then maybe you'll talk about your highlights in your work and how you fit and complete the expertise of the group. And you will demonstrate that only you and the group together can create this fantastic connection that will to reach your common timely goal. And then maybe you propose one specific joint project with the group or give your vision of the future on a short and long time scale. So in that case also, my tip is to make sure that you check the website of the group, understand what they do in advance and how you can fit in, because that's also a very important part to stress. Sometimes already in the application opening, there may be hints and keywords that you might want to recall within your talk. A different situation is a 40-minute scientific seminar to experts in your domain. Now, in that case, your goals are to communicate your research results. You want other scientists to read, to understand, to use and cite your results and papers. And maybe you want to develop new ideas thanks to new collaborations. So what I would do, I would pick a specific new paper or a specific result that you have obtained. I would give the context, the motivation for your paper to exist in first place. And then I would illustrate the new idea, maybe a new implementation, a new result. I would clearly add the archive number of your paper to the slides so that people can look at it and can cite it. Also, you can mention maybe developments targeted to the expertise of the audience who is there. So in this case, you will take the time to explain the idea, your main result, your new result. Maybe you will describe a plot in detail. And my tip in this situation is try to enhance contrast. We'll come back to this concept later also in the talk because I think it's important. But in practice, enhancing contrast in this case would mean How does your method or result differ from what other people have already done? How did it advance what was already there, the state of the art? Also show that you are aware of what other people have done, cite them, which is good, and I mean, always a good thing to do, and be aware in particular of whether your audience may have already worked in that field. So I leave you now with the, again, descriptions also of the colloquium, which has a structure that actually is very different from just a generic scientific seminar or a public outreach talk. So you can go there maybe afterwards, or we can discuss about that afterwards if you want. If you're interested in a particular situation, don't hesitate to contact me. Okay, so let's move on. Now, you know what, you have been invited to a talk, you know what your objectives are, you know who you're talking to, and maybe you have also inquired of where this is going to happen, because this somehow also has an impact. If I have to give a remote talk, it's different from when I am in a large auditorium or in a small room. Do I have a laptop screen? Do I have a big screen? Do I have internet? Can I show a video, images, or something else? And this is also something that you should check in advance.